Well, good evening in Boston and good morning in Taipei. My name is Steve Goldstein, and I'm the director of the Taiwan workshop at Harvard University. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the second important election of this year for those of us who follow cross-strait relations, the American election. What I'm going to do is I'm asking Kevin Law, who is at the Fairbank Center this year, to be the moderator. Kevin is a assistant professor of Chinese politics at the University of Minnesota. And our two panelists are Christina Lai of the Academy of Sinica in Taiwan and Andrew Yang of the of CAPS, the Chinese. What is it? I always say CAPS, Andrew. I know.
That is the full name. Formal name is Chinese Council of Advanced Policy Studies.
The
Established
Chinese
in
Council.
1992. Yeah.
The Chinese Council of Advanced Policy Studies in Taipei, and very, very old friend.
Thank you.
So, Kevin, take it over, and I will intervene.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for the introduction. It's really an honor and a privilege to be moderating this event at Harvard Fairbank. We obviously have a lot to talk about today, and we are very eager to hear and learn from our expert colleagues from Taiwan on not just how people in Taiwan are feeling about an incoming Trump presidency, but also more broadly on the future of cross-strait relations and U.S.-China relations from the perspective of Taiwan in the next 4 years, or perhaps beyond. No pressure for our panelists, who I will introduce in just a second. So in terms of just some minor logistics for this workshop, we are going to have the panelists speak for about 20 minutes. And then after that, Steve might jump in with some comments of his own on cross-strait relations, and then I'll follow up with some more questions for the panel to get the conversation started, which will leave us about 20 to 30 minutes of Q&A if we can, and we'll end at around 9:30 Eastern Time or 10:30 in the morning in Taiwan. And then two more things of interest. So if you want to submit a question for the Q&A, please put your questions in the chat box. And so this will just give us a better sense of what questions are being asked while the panelists are presenting. And also this meeting is being recorded and will be later uploaded to the Fairbank Center's YouTube page. Okay. Now, without further delay, let me introduce our two speakers for today, both distinguished experts and scholars on security issues in Taiwan and the Asia Pacific. First, we have Dr. Christina Lai, Associate Research Fellow at the Institute of Political Science at Academia Sinica, Taiwan. Dr. Lai received her PhD in government from Georgetown University in 2015, and she is interested in U.S.-China relations, Chinese foreign policy, East Asian politics, and qualitative research methods. And her works have appeared in many different places in journals such as Asian Security, Journal of Contemporary China, and the Pacific Review, just to name a few. And then second, we'll have Andrew Nien-dzu Yang, Secretary General at the Taiwan-based think tank, Chinese Council of Advanced Policy Studies, or CAPS. Mr. Yang holds a master's in economics from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and he has had a long and distinguished career in academia, public service, and the think tank world, and having previously served as the Minister of National Defense of the Republic of China in 2013 under President Ma Ying-jeou. All right, so without further delay, Christina, you have the floor.
Yes, so first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Goldstein and Dr. Luo for hosting this great conferences on the Taiwan's perspective for U.S. elections. So I'd like to thank all of you for this opportunity to talk about this crucial relationship between Taiwan and the United States amid this evolving, volatile global landscape. So as we witness this growing geopolitical competition between the United States and China, I think Taiwan's role within the Indo-Pacific region has become increasingly more and more important. So today, I will address three area of interest. First of all, the impact of U.S.-China rivalry and its impacts on Taiwan, and Taiwan's possible strategic response to U.S.-China's relations and future prospect for U.S.-Taiwan relations. So first of all, it is really important to understand that the United States has maintained a relatively stable policy toward Taiwan, regardless of the change of this administration. So every time there is a new US president, there's always been a concern emerging regarding this potential shift or change in US-Taiwan relations. However, I think there's this consistent bipartisan support, bipartisan consensus in US Congress has been able to sustain a stable approach toward Taiwan in recent years. And it's been rooted in the belief that the support for Taiwan can kind of counter the more assertive authoritarian China. And this bipartisan commitments highlights the shared support across the American public and also across Democrat and Republican parties in the US. So I think I would anticipate that the stability and continuity of policy will be more or less the same in the foreseeable futures. And the great power competition between the United States and China will certainly reshape the global landscape in terms of economic and military and political issues, and will also affect the US partners and alliances in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. So within this context, Taiwan certainly occupies a critical strategic location as a part of the first island chain and will serve as a line of defense in US strategy in countering potential security threat from China. So Taiwan's strategic location and its democracy and resilience are certainly really a pivotal role to regional security and by extension to US national security. So in light of these challenges, what would Taiwanese government should do? I think the Taiwanese government has taken several measures to enhance its resilience and also highlight its role and potential contribution to the global community. In that sense, I'll just highlight a few. First of all, I think Taiwan is really committed to expanding its economic tie with the United States and will work closely with Washington on economics and technological issues to foster deeper integrations for mutual beneficial economic development in the future. And secondly, the Taiwanese government has also tried to increase its defense spending to foster a national security and meet the expectations from the United States, also expectation from its allies in Indo-Pacific region. So this increase is in part of Taiwan's border strategy to establish a robust defense posture in East Asia. And in the meantime, the Taiwanese government also implement a new southbound policy. The government has also actively sought to strengthen partnership across Southeast Asian countries and try to create a diverse networks of economic and trade relations that will reduce dependency on China's market. So I think these strategic efforts will help build up Taiwan resilience and make it a crucial role, a crucial player in Indo-Pacific region, and also play a more important role for a restructured global supply chain. So Taiwan's economic policy and also its diplomatic initiatives will certainly pave the way for more beneficial, stable U.S.-Taiwan relations in the coming future. Yeah, so that's all for it right now. I will just offer some of my observations for the current and future U.S.-Taiwan relations, and I look forward to more Q&A later.
Okay, that's great. So let's just jump straight into Andrew, do you want to share some of your thoughts, and then we could sort of move quickly through the panelists and leave some more time for the Q&A.
Thank you, Kevin. Equally, I want to thank Fairbank Center and Kevin and Steve to invite me to join this very important dialogue regarding U.S. presidential elections and the results, views from Taipei. I'd like to take this opportunity to share my very humble and limited observations in Taiwan. Number one would be, what would be the public responses towards the U.S. election? I don't have survey data or objective data to go in line with my remarks. However, my personal observation regarding the public responses to the U.S. reactions, in fact, is not very sentimental as far as I can see. I think one reason for that is that our LY, Legislative Yuan, has, assuming its session in October, and created a very, very robust and dynamic debates, not only regarding to, because this session will be majorly dealing with the next year's national budget. However, the budget issue is still very controversial. It's been going on for many, many weeks now. And finally, I mean, I just flew over here. Last Friday, compromises has to be made. So this is go along with the process of U.S. Presidential election. Certainly will affect the general public sentiments about their attentions. I think priority for Taiwanese taxpayers is to focus on the domestic issue instead of focusing the U.S. election issues. So that makes I hear some.
Yes.
Well,
okay.
All right.
Let's continue.
All right. So that was one of the major factors which has closely related to the public responses towards the U.S. Presidential election. Number two is that, I mean, ordinary people in Taiwan, they don't know much about the U.S. politics, especially the U.S. elections. We have a direct elections, as one man, one vote, and after the vote counting, so the results will be quickly, emerged. However, United States territorially is different from Taiwan, so big, and population structure is also very different. And electoral college is a very, very, alien structure in terms of the election. So people don't understand fundamentally the U.S. structure of general election, especially related to the U.S. president. So lack of knowledge about U.S. Politics or U.S. election process certainly will reduce their interest regarding how to look into the presidential election. That's my limited observation regarding the public responses. In general, I don't think that that creates a lot of attention or even a sentiment regarding the U.S. presidential election. That's number one. Number two, I want to share with my limited observation, initial observation, regarding the expectations from different sectors of the Taiwanese population. Number one is economy, U.S.-Taiwan economic relations. I think from the business communities, their major concern is that what would be the incoming Trump government imposing what kind of conditions to expand U.S. Interest and taking advantage of the Taiwanese trade or investment or whatever. I'm not talking about just TSMC, but there's an expectation from the United States, even including the Biden government. They want more Taiwanese high-tech companies to follow the steps of the TSMC to move to United States. That creates some difficulties and challenges for the local suppliers, because this is a very costly demand from the United States. So that creates a situation for them to make a major decision whether they want to coincide with the U.S. expectation to move to the United States or not. That's from a business community. Number two, also from the business community, double taxation has been discussed for many, many years, but it creates no tangible results. That also added a lot of cost for the business companies. So they expect the government and United States government can put this issue as a priority to resolve the problems and also replace the double taxation so that they will have more benefits for the company. So it's closely related, at least from the business community's expectation as well. So their major concern is what would be the agenda down the road? What would be the roadmap for U.S. next government's policies? That's the concern from the economic issue. Number two is the military defense. A lot of people consider that we already pay huge money in terms of acquire advanced weapon systems from the U.S., at least $20 billion. However, those already paid acquisition has not been delivered in accordance with the schedule. So they expect that the United States has to speed up their process, not only in terms of production, but also in terms of delivery of those advanced systems to Taiwan. However, they're also concerned about elected President Trump also emphasizing Taiwan should increase their defense budget up to 10% of the GDP. That already created a huge debates in Taiwan domestically, because obviously that inevitably that will consume the budget allocation from other sectors, social welfare, education, you name it. So their concern is that whether that will be implemented by the forthcoming by Trump government or not, that will create a lot of internal debate about the resources allocation in Taiwan. And certainly, they consider the United States as still support Taiwan strongly, especially providing defense equipment to Taiwan. That is no question about that. However, increasing resources, budget to support this effort certainly will affect people's daily life and their expectations. So that's the priority for the concern from the ordinary people and from AOY as well. Thirdly, they also expect United States will strongly support Taiwan to participate meaningfully in international activities, even including important international organizations. That will be the kind of expectations from the Taiwanese government, because maintaining strong and active linkages with the like-minded, value-shared countries around the world is important for Taiwan. And the third part, I wanted to make some comments about what should Taiwan government do in line with the elected Trump government in near future. Number one is that it's entirely a new picture of the U.S. Politics. Of course, Taiwanese government have confidence to support the new government as well. However, they have to make extraordinary effort to learn what would be the major cabinet members, who should be in touch with, and how to establish the close relations with the major members of the Trump government in the near future, so that they can fully understand what will be the political agenda for Trump government in the next 4 years or so. So that's the priority for Taiwanese government right now. I want to stop here and share the responses from the audience. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Andrew. Steve, do you want to jump in at this moment?
Sure, Kevin, if you'd like. What I'd like to do is to change the orientation of our discussion a bit and talk about how cross-strait relations from the Taiwan perspective might be affected by the impact of a Trump victory. I think if we were to characterize the dominant expectations of observers regarding the future of U.S. foreign policy under Trump, it would probably revolve around two general concepts: uncertainty and transactional. However, if one were to look at the recent past of the U.S.-Taiwan relationship, one would have to say that both elements are already present in the relationship. Taiwan's value as a strategic ally in the Pacific, or as an example of Asian democracy, are traditionally presented as serving both Taiwan and American interests. At the same time, despite President Biden's repeated pledges to support the defense of the island, the core of the United States One China policy remains strategic ambiguity. Now, how has the Taiwan public reacted to these two factors, uncertainty and transactionality? Generally, public opinion surveys have shown that while there is a strong element of confidence in American supply of equipment during a cross-strait crisis, there is considerable doubt that American forces would actually be deployed, according to surveys of Taiwan public opinion. Moreover, this division or a different view of what the possibility of American intervention might be is reflected in the policies of the two major parties, with the Democratic Progressive Party, the ruling party today, generally seen as tilting towards the United States, with the DPP, with the KMT, the opposition Kuomintang, arguing for a less mainland hostile policy. In other words, the reliability of the United States is embedded in Taiwan public opinion and in Taiwan's party competition. And this has resulted in the existence of a strong element in Taiwan politics of what is known as Yimeilun in Chinese, or skepticism or doubt about the United States. The essential meaning of Yimeilun is that American support of Taiwan is based on American interests and that Taiwan is a disposable chess piece, pizza, in the United States policy towards China, which could be sacrificed by Washington in the interest of better relations with China. This theme, interestingly enough, in a recent survey, was generally agreed to. Specifically, Yimeilun was in the question. This was specifically put to the younger generation in Taiwan, 24 something into the 30s, I think, with about 52% of young adults agreeing with Yimeilun. At the same time, the cultivation of Yimeilun has been a major element in mainland comments on cross-strait relations and on propaganda towards Taiwan. The concept has been ever present in the mainland charge that the United States-Taiwan alignment is based on asymmetrical interests, with the current Taiwan government leaning towards Taiwan for the purpose of achieving independence, while Washington seeks to use Taiwan to contain China. So what's the point of all this? I think there are two apparent conclusions to me. First, that the uncertainty expected in a Trump presidency is not a new factor in United States-Taiwan relations. It's always been there. Always been there really since the 50s. Secondly, as we look ahead, we might expect an intensification of Yimeilun in Taiwan domestic politics, as well as an expanded use of the concept in Beijing's approach to the Taiwan public. Okay, Kevin, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for your comments. So, yeah, and I think, well, let's reconvene and maybe we'll start with some questions for all of the panelists, because I felt there were parts of everyone's presentations that really intersected with one another. Just, for information, I just saw on my news feed that President-elect Trump is planning to tap Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State, and Representative Michael Waltz from Florida as his National Security Advisor. So we could let that maybe sink in for a moment and reflect on how this is going to change our diagnosis of U.S.-China-Taiwan relations. So the first question that I want to highlight, I think we can start from more sort of specific technical questions on military spending that has gotten quite controversial in Taiwan domestic politics these days. And of course, as Andrew pointed out, right, that there has been significant pushback in Taiwan, mostly from the opposition party, that Taiwan is not willing to spend or invest that much of its GDP in sort of wasteful military expenditures. And Trump himself has said, right, 10% of GDP, of Taiwan's GDP needs to go in to national defense, right? So Among DC policy circles, there has been a lot of also skepticism. As Steve pointed out, right, there has been skepticism in Taiwan on the part of U.S. willingness to defend Taiwan. But on the contrary, right, there has also been skepticism from DC in terms of Taiwan's willingness to defend itself. Right, so I kind of want to start with that question, right, and to let the panelists unpack it a little bit. So, how can the Lai administration or policy makers in Taiwan persuade DC that this is not the case, right? That there is still significant amount of public willingness to defend itself, or maybe that this is actually a real concern, right? That Taiwan is actually not doing its own part, as some of those in DC have claimed, right? It has not done enough to defend itself. So anyone who wants to jump in, feel free.
Can I just take the points that Kevin just made?
Sure.
Steve just mentioned about email. Equally, I mean, the expectations or remarks made by elected President Trump or any other important politicians in the United States regarding Taiwan should continuously increase its defense spending or budget. We don't want to talk about what kind of percentage it has involved. Maybe elected President Trump mentioned about 10% of GDP or whatever. But the question is not money. The question is not whether there is a suspicion that Taiwan has not show its determination or resolve to defend itself. The question is, I mean, from members of the OY, not just the subcommittee of foreign and defense affairs, but also from the general public. Number one, why should Taiwan be, constrained or forced to accept defense spending increase unilaterally made by the United States? After all, how much money should spend on the defense should be the task or major concern for Ministry of National Defense, and including the national security team as well. So what is the foundation for Taiwan to listen to the United States demand? I mean, that's one important question should be, put forward. Number two, what kind of narrative that Taiwan should deliver in terms of creating a more rational and sensible debate about the expectations from the United States? How should we justify the expectations and integrate it with our policy implementations? After all, MND should come up with a very convincing list of future defense spending and its implementation. That is the way to justify the increase of this defense spending, because you spend people's money in terms of increasing the percentage of spending, right? We already spending a lot of money on defense, not only in terms of the gradual increase of the percentages of GDP, but also in the last couple of years, especially during the Taiwan government's administration, we have approved quite impressive special budget to support the defense reform and defense modernization. So was that being included into the defense spending, or is it's a additional? people who spend the money, who pay for it, should be given a rational and sensible narrative and debate as well. So I think that's the kind of response and expectation from Taiwan general public.
All right, great. Christina, do you want to jump in?
Yes, so in terms of Taiwan's national security, I think I will offer some my observation also about highlight what the Taiwanese government has been doing to enhance its national security and its Taiwan's national interests. First of all, I think the Taiwanese government has doing a steady job for increase its defense budget, and also has been doing quite a really good job, in my opinion, to strengthen a defense capability. And in the coming future, I think the Taiwanese government should continue with its defense reform and focusing on military modernization and its asymmetric welfare capability to deter Chinese expansionist ambitions or gray zone tactics. So by increasing its defense budget or improve training or acquiring weapons to increase our asymmetric capability, Taiwan can certainly increase its self-defense, right? And I think there has been concrete actions done by former President Tsai and also the current President Lai Ching-te. And they're both strengthened and the preparations, the training reserve force, and extended mandatory military service to ensure a robust national armies in times of heightened U.S.-China's geographically competitions in Asia. And secondly, I'd like to highlight Taiwan's role in an Indo-Pacific region or possible a stronger Indo-Pacific partnership with U.S. allies. I think Taiwanese government should also deepen a partnership and connections with both with the United States and other countries in the Indo-Pacific region. So in addition to maintaining close ties with the United States, the Taiwanese government can also engage with other diplomatic allies, such as Japan, and Australia, Canada, and Philippines to gain border regional supports. And this diversified diplomacy can also help Taiwan to avoid over-dependence on the U.S. And also with its political support. So in that sense, I think Taiwan should also try to seek active participation in U.S.-led multilateral institutions. And it should really seek to meaningful participations in an emerging kind of multilateral networks in Indo-Pacific region, and to raise awareness of Taiwan's strategic location and Taiwan possible contributions to the liberal international order. And finally, I'd like to say a little bit about a cross-strait relation. Taiwanese government should certainly convey its commitment to peace and democracy, and its strong commitment to maintain the status quo in China-Taiwan relations. So the active diplomacy or soft power appeal can certainly counter Beijing's narrative and to kind of highlight Taiwan's potential contribution to international community. And as Taiwan seek to preserve a regional peace and stability, and rather than pursue a de jure independence. And I would like to say a little bit about a possible fear about U.S. abandoning Taiwan, so-called email Lun, right? So given this tension between the United States and China and its impacts on Taiwan's national security, I think Taiwanese political party, such as DPP and KMT, should really collaborate on national security issues and presenting united front line against external pressures. So this unity can strengthen Taiwan's negotiation or leverage with both the US and China, even amid this current political division. I know it may be hard to achieve this kind of political consensus immediately, but I think this should be something that both leaders in both DPP and KMT should really aim for in the coming future. And I think raising the public awareness of the complexity of China-Taiwan-US triangles and implications will be the most important thing to do for not only for President Lai Ching-te and also for US President-elect Trump, right? So highlighting Taiwan's democratic values and contribution to the global community can also help garner stronger international and regional support. And that's all I have to say for now for policy recommendation for both Taiwanese government and for US government for now. And I look forward to more conversation later.
So Christina, you just preempted one of the questions I had drafted, but I wanted to pull from an earlier comment you made on multilateralism, and Andrew, feel free to jump in if you want, right? Because well, of course, President-elect Trump has made tariffs, right, a big part of his foreign policy platform. And there is, I think, still considerable anxiety among US allies in the Asia Pacific about the possibility that there might be some turbulence ahead when it comes to trade relations, right? Or, even more broadly speaking, coalitions and alliance building. Do we feel that this will harm Taiwan in the long run, or how can Taiwan deal with this potential friction in trade relations, or maybe beyond, right? In terms of anticipating what the Trump administration will do when it comes to Asia policy.
Well, the disadvantage of Taiwan is that Taiwan is a loner in the international community, because Taiwan has very, very few diplomatic ties, only involving Central and South American countries, or South Pacific countries as well. That's the handicap for Taiwan to be more dynamic and active, to perform its role in multilateral international structures. Even though everybody appreciate Taiwan has made a very important success in to fix its own economy, especially in the high-tech development, and repeatedly emphasizing Taiwan is a major supplier to support the high-tech developments. However, contrary to that, we don't see equally that the international multilateral organizations or countries making physical efforts to correspond to Taiwanese contribution to support international economic developments. So I think this is a very important disadvantages that Taiwan is facing. That's the reason why I mentioned earlier in my opening remarks, United States should play a major role and equally simultaneously encouraging major economic countries to step up their efforts to assist Taiwan to be a more contributive actors to fix the international economy. Equally, I think that will help Taiwan to be elevated into this international events and make further contribution. I'll stop here and looking forward remarks from responses.
Christina, anything to add?
Yes, so I just like to briefly say about what you about trade relations or Taiwan's roles in this emerging multilateral networks in Indo-Pacific region. I think although the U.S. Congress has signaled U.S. commitment to Taiwan, but I think they remain bilateral in nature due to China's assertiveness or China's intended isolation of Taiwan. So I think there has been like sister city connections or student exchange programs, NGO linkage. I can maintain the engagements of civil society groups in Taiwan and in the United States, right? But I think the bilateral relation between the US and Taiwan alone, including this informal contacts or travel acts and arms sale, still might not be sufficient to address China's territorial expansions and its assertiveness in Asia and its challenge to the liberal international order. So I think currently the trade investment framework like TIFA is the policy platform for US-Taiwan economic relations, right? The TIFA Council meeting promote trade and investment dialogue between Taiwan's and US governments. And both sides are committed to address more on intellectual property rights and workers' benefit of supply chain resilience. I think these are really good things, right? But I think still there could be more to be done to enhance bilateral trades and promote greater engagement among both the private and public sectors. For example, I think the executive branch should really devise a legal frameworks along with TIFA and the GCTF to negotiate maybe in the future to free trade agreements with Taiwanese government. So this will really deepen engagements with the two sides and will benefit both Taiwanese and US people and pave the way for Taiwan to sign a FTA with other nations in Asia and beyond.
All right, thank you. Steve, any questions you have for the panelists, or should we just jump right into audience Q&A? Sorry, yeah, I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So
Yeah,
we
what
can,
I said was let's jump into
okay,
audience Q&A
okay,
and
fantastic.
see where we go.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I think we have a question here in the chat box that says, what could we pay attention to as signals of shifts in US policy towards Taiwan under Trump? I guess the question is more sort of like, what should we be on the lookout for? Does, the appointment of Senator Rubio mean anything, right? As Secretary of State mean signal sort of the stronger stance towards China, perhaps a more sort of supportive stance towards Taiwan? And how much should we read into that appointment? And what are some other policy efforts can we be on the lookout for under the Trump administration?
Well, I think for Taiwanese government, at least, because they are the key community, not only in terms of national security team, but also in terms of major government departments as well. Number one, they should develop very strong and close interdepartmental coordination regarding the way they share their observations and their perspectives, how to look into the forthcoming President Trump's cabinet and their policy formulation process. That's number one. Number two, at the same time, I think the key government officials should work very carefully in terms of approaching the US major cabinet members, or how to read President Trump's perception and his way of making decisions. I would say devil is in the details. So you have to understand President Trump's practice of his decision-making process, and then look into the cabinets, key members, who has a strong influence over President Trump, or nobody can influence his process of making decisions. So this is a very careful deliberation of looking to the forthcoming, very power-centric government in terms of next 4 years of President Trump leading the U.S. administration, because Democrats already claimed victory in Senate and forthcoming Congress and elected president. He has a strong will to make America great again. I mean, how are you going to define the pillars of making America great again in next 4 years? I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned from Taiwanese perspective. That's my limited observation.
Go ahead.
Kevin, can I say something?
Yes, of course.
I'm more concerned about Taiwan's domestic politics. That is, if relations begin in this Trump administration on a difficult path, the implications for Taiwan's domestic politics will probably be, again, if you accept the existence of Imeiluan, it's going to favor the Kuomintang. And if it favors the Kuomintang, the current balance of power in the Taiwan legislature rests very much with the Kuomintang. So a Kuomintang arguing for a more open policy towards the mainland to compensate for the difficulties that Taiwan is having in the initial days of the Trump administration. If skepticism about the United States is there, I think it will affect the political balance in Taiwan, and that will affect the political leverage of the ruling DPP.
Christina, anything to add?
Yes, so I think Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te and his government will really need to kind of chart the murky waters that represented, the foreseeable U.S.-China relations, Taiwan relations, the triangle, right? So I think the current Lai administration should really tap into the experiences of those who work mostly closely with the Trump team from 2016 up to 2020. Right? It also includes a lot of people who quietly did the work behind the closed door. They really need to make sure that they know everything that they learn and can lean on contacts they have made before. So President Lai's diplomatic step in Washington, D.C., both in Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office, TECOs, and also the DPP's U.S. missions, they all need to establish exactly how people, how the people and who are there actually have Trump's ears. There could be a group of personnel that to look into how they actually think about Taiwan. For example, do they generally want to stick by Taiwan even though within the four years of uncertainty, or are they isolationists who only look to abandon Taiwan after they have making a trade deal with China, or will they gradually abandon or Taiwan like they right now try to handle the Russian-Ukraine war or not? So these are the question are really important to as well as the answer, right? The answer to this question is probably will be the single most important issue, and also present as most important informations that will define Taiwan's security in the next few years or so. And finally, let me say a little bit about the incoming Trump administration. It could be so-called Trump 2.0 administration. Right? But I think I will overall remain realistic without overstating the dangers. Right? For example, I think the Biden approach to Taiwan reflects a rhetorical strategy toward strategic clarity, while the Trump administration may convey a tendency toward a potential amendments, right? However, I think Trump will also likely to operate within this long-term framework of strategic ambiguity, as the Biden administration has done so far. And I think Beijing is not really inclined to forceful military action unless extreme circumstances arise. So in the long run, I think all three sides should aim to avoid another serious military confrontation. And I think President Trump's approach might introduce new challenge for Europeans and Asian allies. But I think we can have learned a valuable lesson from its previous terms on how to navigate a potential Trump presidency.
All right, so shifting gears to the second question, and I'll sort of repackage a little bit, but the gist of the question is, do we see any future prospects for improved relations between Taiwan and the PRC, and especially, I guess, within the context of a second Trump presidency? Yeah, any thoughts? Of course, we were talking about this in the aftermath of U.S. elections, but in terms of hearing from your observations on, the future of cross-strait relations in the next 4 years, any thoughts from our panelists?
I would suggest Steve to respond to this question first.
Thank you, Andrew. The essence of cross-strait relations today is that both sides are holding totally incompatible views of where to go ahead and how to go ahead. And offer, I think, they are so incompatible that they, at best, give us a future of continued tension, and at worst, either by accident or by intent, the possibility of some kind of armed confrontation. I just don't, at the moment, I don't see anywhere in either side's position that can be the basis for any meaningful negotiation.
Well, I'll quickly respond my remarks. I totally agree with what Steve just said. Yeah. End of story.
Christina, do you agree?
Yes, so I think a stronger China might be even more assertive in forcefully claiming that Taiwan is part of its territory, right? But Beijing has always believed that it is entitled to govern the silence under the non-intervention principle. So as a result, Taiwan's legal status and political recognitions cannot be easily established, given that China has been devoted considerable time and effort to isolate Taiwan, right? But I think this does not mean that the U.S. ally and U.S. governments, partners in Asia, can do nothing about it. So in fact, I think the United States can prioritize Taiwan policy with this newly established institution, such as the Quad and AUKUS, Indo-Pacific Economic Network, a framework to ensure Taiwan's meaningful participation in regional affairs. And I think Taiwan has really so much to offer to international community, and it also has so much to learn from the emerging multilateral regional networks in the Indo-Pacific. So I think I still remain optimistic about Taiwan's emerging role in Indo-Pacific region, and remain hopeful and optimistic for U.S.-Taiwan relations. And especially starting in the 2010, right, China asserted its sovereignty claim over Taiwan, and its rapid military build-up has certainly posed significant challenge to the United States and also in Taiwan. And I think the military conflicts in Taiwan Straits, or forceful occupations or blockades, will certainly lead to severe consequences to geopolitics and also economic development. So if it is successful, like Beijing would really expand its growing naval presence in East China Sea and the South China Sea. And these are two most prosperous, busy shipping lanes. And the prolonged military conflict will also disrupt Taiwan's semiconductor production, or delay in its ship delivery, or harm the global supply chain, etc. So China's frequently military intimidation, economic coercions, certainly put Taiwan in a difficult position. Right? So Taiwan's future will also impact U.S. national interests with respect to Indo-Pacific economic developments and liberal international order. And that is the reason why I think the United States and its allies and partners should have this political influence and regional initiative to promote Taiwan's participation, and therefore try to stabilize China-Taiwan relations.
All right, let me try to push all the panelists on this question just a little bit more, because I feel it's a good segue to our third question there in the chat box. So let's say in a hypothetical, right, in 2028, the KMT regains the presidency in Taiwan's presidential elections, or maybe through a joint ticket, let's say, with the Taiwan People's Party. In that case, should we be expecting a radical pivot, right, from the position of the Lai administration under the DPP, or has there been, or do you see an emerging consensus within Taiwan now on how to deal with the PRC, or how to position Taiwan within U.S.-China great power competition? So this is, for the folks in the audience who are really interested in the nitty-gritties of Taiwanese domestic politics.
Personally, regarding your hypothetical questions, I sort of have a very cautiously pessimistic view about this. If you look at in the past, it's so divided in terms of the identity issue, in terms of the cross-strait issue, in terms of the policy approach, in terms developed by different government. Based upon this divergent and getting more polarized, perspectives and views, especially among the young generations. I don't see should KMT return to power in 2028, it will create some kind of platform to bring about consensus building regarding how to deal with made in China. It will be tremendously difficult as far as I can see in terms of observing Taiwanese political performances, especially among the young generations. What I define young generation below 30 years of age. Number one, they don't really pay attention to the cross-strait relations right now. Number two, more and more of the young people, including their future generations, will share their identity of the Taiwanese instead of pursuing their observation of the mainland Chinese or Chineseness. How are you going to bring about this kind of consensus building as a result of KMT coming back to power in 2028? So I still holding this cautiously pessimistic view regarding future situation.
Yeah, just to add to Andrew, it's probably unlikely that given the mood in Taiwan 4 years from now, that the Kuomintang could offer a significantly different view of the nature of the cross-strait relationship that would be more amenable to the mainland accepting the beginnings of an effort towards a demilitarization.
Christina, do you want to
Yes.
some
Yes,
reply?
I just want to say a little bit about maybe the possible election in Taiwan, right? But I think no matter what, who comes to power, whether it's KMT, or DPP, or even Taiwan's People Party, or even a joint ticket. But I think Taiwanese people, regardless of the generation gap, has reached to some kind of consensus about maintaining status quo, right? I think if you put into the Taiwanese opinion poll, right, the majority of people in Taiwan will support the status quo of not declaring legal independence and prefer to maintain a status quo, or you can maintain the so-called Republic of China, like ROC as the country formal name, right? And the former President Tsai administration has adapted a status quo position to maintain Taiwan's autonomy while remaining open to engage political dialogue with China, even though China has reluctant to do so, right? And I think President Lai has also followed former President Tsai's political legacy of maintaining status quo, right? So I think Taiwan political quest to deepen ties with the U.S. and also trying to look for meaningful international participation while remaining the name of ROC will be the baseline expectation, regardless of who comes into power in Taiwan.
All right. So I guess, to sort of rephrase the third question in the chat box, right? And I think Christina has more or less referred to this question in one of her earlier comments. So I'm curious to hear what Andrew and Steve would say in response, right? What can President Lai do, right, in this current context? So what are some of his bargaining chips? How can he better leverage Taiwan's current advantages in discussions with the Trump administration? And what are some of your policy recommendations overall, I guess, would be the question.
I think priority for Lai Ching-te government, he has to enhance domestic confidence regarding his economic policies, because you see there is across the board, a lot of countries also share the same phenomena. There is a polarized economic benefits in amount of populations here. So whether Lai Ching-te government can perform a more acceptable equalizer at least provide the foundation for generation to come, that they have the opportunity to improve their economic situation and securing their jobs, can raise the family, have the opportunity to buy their own house. I think that will be the strong expectation among young generations and including the old generations. So priority for the government, if he make great efforts to knock down all the obstacles to improve economic equality domestically, I think that would be a very important factor to improve his support and enhancing people's confidence. Therefore, that will certainly provide the foundation for people to support other major policies developed from the government. I'll stop here.
Steve, any recommendations, suggestions for the Lai administration?
I would just reinforce what Andrew just said. If you look at Lai's inaugural address, the sections about the mainland and relations with the mainland were relatively small in comparison to his discussion of domestic politics. He presented a very long domestic agenda that seemed to identify Taiwan's major issues or major problems ahead. So to that extent, the DPP, if it can remain out of a serious conflict with the mainland and address its domestic agenda, it will strengthen itself. But that domestic agenda has been there now for a relatively long period of time.
All right, so we're gonna do, I think, a last call for questions from the audience if anyone wants to jump in. But let me, well, maybe try to wrap this up in a few minutes. I want to, again, push you all to say something on, so your sort of gut reactions to a second incoming Trump presidency. And borrowing from that famous Economist headline we all know about, right? Is Taiwan the most dangerous place on earth? Do you all feel that under a second Trump presidency, that sense of urgency or that sense of danger has increased, decreased, or is generally still the same? And should we be worried? Or should we don't have to worry that much about a second Trump presidency? So just to put you all on the spot, right? Because I think many people in the audience would love to, sort of have a very simple takeaway from today's workshop.
Number one, I think the President Trump in his second government, number one, should avoid the mistakes he made in his first presidency. Learn the lessons. And number two, he has to sort of downsizing his personality. And because the slogan he put forward in his campaign is to make America great again. So he has to deliver it. Instead of bonds, he has to provide meat for the supporters. I think that's important. So reducing, there's a saying, less is more. So less Donald Trump will be more American people. I'll stop here.
Excellent. Steve?
I think what I have to say is that the cross-strait situation is both a diplomatic and a military issue. I think that we've gone, and the relationship between the US and China has gone too far into the military aspect of the relationship. And what we need is diplomacy, caution, and wise policies towards both Taiwan and China. My concern is that as the Trump administration lines up, that it is an administration that does not seem to me, from the individuals, to have the possibility of maintaining a balanced policy that is both diplomacy and military towards the Taiwan Strait situation. I am concerned.
Christina.
Yes, so I think looking to the future, I expect U.S.-Taiwan relation to still remain strong and robust, and because it's also driven by our shared values of democracy and also aligned strategic interests. So, but nevertheless, I also think that the Taiwanese government also need to remain adaptable and forward-thinking in addressing this kind of uncertain geopolitical environment. So Taiwanese government really need to be flexible in its strategy that will ensure it's continue to hold on to a vital position within the global supply chains and maintain a meaningful or crucial roles in the Indo-Pacific. And I think U.S.-Taiwan relation in the foreseeable future will still be one of the most important issues also in Asian politics, in Indo-Pacific area in general. So Taiwan must stay resilient and committed to strengthening a partnership, not only with the United States, but also across countries in East Asia. So by doing so, Taiwan will contribute to the regional peace and stability. And concerning to the possible Trump administration about its rhetorics and behavior, and I think I still want to remain optimistic about the incoming Trump administration, right? Because I think the U.S. policy toward Taiwan and China has been relatively stable, especially since the Biden administration has built much of this policy based on the previous first Trump administration. And I think there will be no significant changes are expected in the near future. Right? I think the U.S. policy toward Taiwan and China has been relatively consistent, and because it has backed by bipartisan support, therefore I do not anticipate a major departure. I remain optimistic about U.S.-Taiwan relations, and I think open and honest dialogue between the Taiwanese and U.S. government could really bring up more positive developments.
All right.
Kevin, let me add something also.
Yes,
Let me add
absolutely.
something to what I said about the Trump administration.
Mm-hmm.
I think also on the part of the Chinese administration, there's a necessity to realize that the pursuit of both hard and soft policies towards Taiwan is a self-defeating policy, because the hard aspects of the policies, the flybys, the missiles, the threats, cancel out to a great extent with the Taiwan public the fruits of what the Chinese call a softer policy, economic integration, favors for Chinese people on the mainland, and a general seeming welcome to Taiwan to take part in the what Xi Jinping sees as the great renewal of the Chinese nation. you can't pursue contradictory policies to Taiwan. That is just failure and presents the danger of continued confrontation and accident.
Yeah, I think Steve has pointed out sort of the elephant in the room, right? Essentially, we don't know how, at this point yet, how China will react or is going to react to a second Trump presidency and how this will affect their strategizing with regards to Taiwan, right? And then, of course, we can infer based on our exchanges with our colleagues in China, but obviously, that may or may not be representative of what, the big man in Zhongnanhai is actually thinking, right? So I think there are still a lot of puzzles and questions to be resolved. I think overall, among our panelists, we have about like 2 pessimists and 1 optimist, right? On the future of Taiwan, the stability across the Taiwan Strait. And this has been a really great conversation. I hope people in the audience has really learned a lot. I certainly have. Any last sort of parting thoughts from our panelists? What is the takeaway and how should we prepare ourselves essentially for the next 4 years? Any sort of things you might have forgot to say or omitted in your remarks?
Well, I will certainly expect forthcoming present times government, especially himself, and also including President Xi Jinping and President Lai Ching-te, should be carefully interpret either side's performances, comments, and behavior, so as to avoid misunderstanding and miscalculation, because misunderstanding and miscalculation certainly will contribute to further escalation of tensions in the Taiwan Strait area.
Any other panelists wants to have sort of parting thoughts or things you want to highlight, reiterate?
Yes, so I in that case, I like to highlight the role of U.S. partners, what U.S. partners can do to help stabilize U.S.-China-Taiwan triangles, or how secure Taiwan's national interests or promote regional stability, right? I think the U.S. and its Asian partners can really develop substantive alliance relations and facilitate peace and stability and promote Taiwan's presence in regional affairs. And I think the United States can also engage in a contingency plan for a military crisis confrontation in Taiwan Straits with its partners, such as in Japan and Philippines and Australia, right? So I think just give you a recent example, I think the US-Japan-Taiwan framework could really start with Taiwan's involvement as a dialogue partners on a contingency planning and logistics support, and also try to strengthen Japan-Taiwan security tie over time through intelligence sharing and surveillance, and also Coast Guard training. So I think Asian country can also initiate discussions with the United States about Taiwan presence in the US-led multilateral organization in Indo-Pacific. For example, Taiwan could really begin to participate in the Indo-Pacific framework as a dialogue partners or even a semi-official members in US-led multilateral networks with Australia, Japan, and South Korea and other nations on export control, cybersecurity, and supply chain resilience. So the United States and other members can also consider expanding the networks and invite Taiwan to join maybe Quad Plus meeting or initiatives, workshops to improve policy coordination and information sharing and build up economic and political resilience in the Indo-Pacific region.
All right, Steve, you have the last word.
Just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Kevin, especially, for an excellent session. And let's see what happens.
Yes, let's see what happens. Well, thank you so much for people in the audience for showing up tonight or in the morning if you're in Taiwan. Thank you very much to Mark Grady at the Fairbank Center for Chinese Studies for technical assistance in making this happen. And of course, a big round of applause to our panelists, Christina Lai, Andrew Yang, and of course, our Stephen Goldstein, right, for making all of this happen. So thank you so much and hope everyone has a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you,
Thank
Christina.
Yeah.
Steve. Yeah, Kevin. Thank you
That's
so
an
much.
Perfect.
official
Cheers.
good night.
Yep. All right. Safe trip to Taipei.